Oh yeah, we are rolling.
All right.
What's up, Cohen?
Not much.
Uh,
Chilling.
Still waking up a little bit. Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
No, it's all good. Hopefully my enthusiasm for this album and this
I'm
artist
sure it
will spark you. Welcome everyone. My name is KARAC HENDRIKS. This road is mine. This episode is God. We're already at number 11. Yeah, we're doing good.
There we go.
For those of you watching on YouTube, you may. Oh, you can't actually see the cat.
Really?
That's hilarious. We have Archer on the table here. He's chilling. He's also taking a look at the cover of the album that we're going to be discussing, which is "The Way It Is" by Bruce Hornsby and the Range. So I used a real big technicality on my on my weird OCD thing. So you know how I'm using like every letter of the alphabet twice because there's 52 weeks in the year and there's 26 letters in the alphabet.
Yeah.
But I had already assigned or used H twice, so I couldn't use Hornsby.
Okay.
So I used R for the Range.
Oh,
so
it's fair.
Yeah, well, you know.
Because he has albums without them, so.
Exactly. That's how I got around it in my OCD. I know you can relate to. So.
Yeah.
This is a pivotal record, not only for me, but just for the world in general. Actually, if you want to maybe take a look at that for a sec. So I've also got the CD there, and the reason I've set out that CD in particular, take a look at the cover on it.
Oh.
This is a rare version of it. I spent way too much money on a used copy of this CD.
Cool.
There's so much I don't know about Bruce. I can't wait. I hope there's a book one day. Or better yet, I just get to know the guy. I'd have to start liking basketball, though. Apparently, he's a big basketball guy. But
cool. Is he tall?
Yes, he is, and his kids are apparently even taller. So,
cool.
Yeah, very cool. But he came on the scene. Of course, we learn all about this nonsense after the fact. But as I just showed you before we started recording, he was a member of the band Ambrosia, actually, before they shut her down in the early 80s. He didn't actually record with them. But he did. He is in that one video. That we just watched. I can't remember the name of the song already. It was cool. Ambrosia's actually a really cool.
How Do You Love Me? And
is that what it was? Yeah.
And both of them were How Much Can I Feel?
Well, How Can I Feel is the one I played you because that's kind of their biggest hit. But that was earlier in their career. But it's just important to kind of put it in context because. Like a guy like Bruce Hornsby, when they come out, and at least around this era, when they come out and they're so fully formed, they had a past. Like they didn't just come out of the womb amazing, but he was pretty much off the radar, and I know just enough to be dangerous. I'm sure I could start spending hours going down some rabbit holes and Googling and things, but he did have some sort of ties to the UK. I think he went over there. The videos from this album were very very British looking too. They weren't like super high quality, but they were, they weren't cheap either. Very, very cool. But when that song, The Way It Is, came out, it changed everything for me. It changed everything for a lot of people. Yeah.
It's a cool song.
Yeah. So what was your first exposure to that song or even just to Hornsby in particular? I know
for that song in particular, I'm actually not sure. I think it's just one of those songs. It's kind of ingrained in people. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that wouldn't know it otherwise probably know it from Tupac because he samples.
Yeah, that was the big sample. Like when I was in my teen years, I was like, oh, cool. It already had made a resurgence.
Yeah.
And he hadn't really gone away per se even around that time. He was working with like Chaka Khan. He actually had a very faithful like black following. Like he was very... because he was so soulful and like some of his stuff would either have a bit of a crossover thing or at least he would be called on from a writing perspective. But yeah, the Tupac song called Changes was just basically a sample of The Way It Is.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, there's 3 songs on here that are starred.
Yes.
So what?
They were produced by the one and only Huey Lewis.
Yeah, I see the stars now. Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how that all went down. I think like when Bruce came out at the time, there was a lot of articles, and then there was a lot you could learn about him. But I think Huey Lewis discovered him and helped him get the record deal, and probably produced those 3 songs. And I think 2 of those. The reason I got this special version is because 2 of the songs are actually in different versions than the ones that ended up on the one that we all know and love. You can't even hear them on streaming. They're probably on YouTube somewhere. And I love the cover. It's a picture
that's cool.
of Bruce playing an accordion, and it's all vibey. And yeah, so this is the early days of compact disc too. So on the inside, there's no notes, there's no liner notes. It's other CDs available for purchase. Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
cool,
RCA Records. Yeah. So anyway, obviously you can tell by my heightened enthusiasm. It's not just coffee. My two Bruces, right? I was saying between Springsteen and Hornsby. That to me just showed. Well, first of all, I should have probably just been a piano player and got it over with. But because with Mark Cohen as well too, it's just there was something about. I mean, you had a 5-minute long song the way it is, like 2 bizarre piano solos.
Yeah.
Lyrics about the downfall of the American dream, not unlike Perfect Aim. Not unlike Born in the USA.
Yeah, true.
Or many other songs, of course, but around that time. So we're talking the mid '80s. We were already first term into Ronald Reagan being the president, going into his second term, and then of course leading in because George Bush Senior was. He was VP, I think, in the first term. I better triple check that. But anyway, and then he became president, of course, the next time. So we had 3 rounds of Republicans, and that was definitely a big shift, I think, for like politically. Republicans often, like, because the parties are so bizarre, like they sort of switched roles almost in a way. I think Republicans always stood for maybe less government overall and really fiscal spending. Of course, if you look at the books now, Republicans have actually spent more money than Democrats historically, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I love that picture.
Yeah, it's cool.
We're holding it up to the camera there. That's
the quote too.
Yeah, what does it say?
Diesel rolls.
A diesel rolls in silhouette eastbound. Yeah. And of course, Virginia is on the east side of the U.S., right? So there's there's a really unique mixture of music that comes through the Virginia area. Obviously, I mean, and there was a lot of jokes at the time, like especially in the first 2 albums by the Bruce Hornsby and the Range. The music was like this combination of definitely like roots bluegrass influences, believe it or not, and then of course the jazz part and just straight up rock. Like this is an album that there was still some of that mid '80s production that was pretty terrible, but it was just so unique. The songs, similar to Pat Metheny, which obviously they've worked together. You were just learning the
solo
the solo from Harbor Lights. His first technically solo album,
for Hornsby.
Yeah, and so they're kind of kindred. They're brothers in a way, and I may have told you before, but so back in the days of having true B-sides, Bruce Hornsby did a series of instrumental B-sides. Just using a letter as the name, so song A, song B, song C.
Right,
song D.
yeah, and then
that
Metheny.
started with Metheny.
Yeah.
So out of respect for Metheny, Hornsby deliberately jumped over the letters.
Yeah, that's cool.
That Metheny had already used.
I think we talked about that on the podcast actually.
Oh, we maybe did on another episode.
On a different episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I just had an affinity for artists that were really nerdy, but were just excellent. The band in particular, John Mollo, the drummer, stayed with Bruce when he went solo. It seems like anytime, like when Springsteen went dissolved the E Street Band, he still kept Roy Bittan.
Okay.
Usually that's more around business. That's when this happens. When bands start to elevate and then the payroll starts to go up, and then all of a sudden they kind of do this overcorrection. They need to like kind of get their salaries down. So it's almost easier to lay them off and then rehire them at a lower rate if they're willing to. Usually the ego won't let you.
Right.
And of course with Springsteen, he had more like different reasons for that. He just needed to find himself and get grounded again. And his identity was so tied to the band that I think he needed to kind of shake that off a bit. But Roy was very forward with wanting to write with him too. So they were doing a lot of writing around the Tunnel of Love era and then through. And then of course Max Weinberg went to be the band leader for the Jay Leno show, and poor Max. Gary Talent ended up moving to Nashville and becoming a great record producer. So and they all had other things to do, but yeah, with Bruce Hornsby, so similar things. So John stuck around for the first couple solo albums. Marinelli, though, the guitar player, I just love him. He's in Nashville now. He does the Odd Session. Like, if you're looking for something that's just a little different than your typical country guy, because he's not a country guy, but he's just got that. His Strat sound is just ingrained. So I saw him when he's been playing with Bonnie Raitt live for years, basically since the Range dissolved.
Right.
And when I started bawling because I saw, like, I love Bonnie, but I love George Marinelli. So when his tone, like he does these 2-stringed fills, these slide ups, and they're just his tone, just hearing the tone even in a different setting, just kind of knocked me out. And he also did an album by David Nail. David Nail's easily one of my more recent idols from the Nashville side of things. On both of the first 2 David Nail records, the first one was guitar, but mostly by Waddy, actually.
Oh yeah,
so
of course.
They needed to, like, they were trying to draw from the 70s singer-songwriter era, so may as well get some of the players that are kind of attached to that sound. But for the second one, I don't know exactly why George in particular, but good choice in my opinion anyway. But I mean, like, we could run through all the songs, but everyone knows the singles too. It's really not a big secret. Of course, The Way It Is like, it's up there with Walking to Memphis as one of these more later century huge songs. A song called Mandolin Rain.
Yeah, I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good sign. That's a good test, because you're far enough away from it that if you're and I'm not listening to these hits all the time. In fact, I'm listening far more to the live stuff or his later albums. But nowadays, because these things are just entrenched in me. But yeah, when it came out, it was just a real, just a shake, because the piano, it was piano driven. He was influenced heavily by obviously Elton John and Leon Russell. So Elton and Leon were buddies, influenced, and but he also obviously has that huge jazz thing going on, and like I don't even know where his influences start and end on the jazz side. He talks about some of them, but I think he was definitely fame-averse too. Like, he was not interested in being famous. I think, as far as I know, he just continued to live in Virginia, and had a couple kids, and probably just living off the royalties from The Way It Is.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
one track.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that they just take the opportunity to have a hit, or whatever, and they come back and they do it again. It's not that they're looking for stardom, but they do want the adulation too. And but the revenue from a song like that is it's huge.
Infinite.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I did up a playlist on Spotify.
Yeah.
It was a tough one, of course, because I mean, what I did is I just kept it to the Range era. So I put his first appearance on record that I can see. He sat in with a band called the Yellow Jackets, a jazz thing. So he plays with them on that song. So I threw that on there. And of course, instead of the studio version of The Way It Is, I put there was at the time you could only find it like used or whatever. There was a live album, or basically it was like The Way It Is live or whatever, and it was sent to radio stations, and they would like be able to play the album, as a show kind of thing. They'd play a side, play some commercials, and play the other side. That was pretty common back when FM radio was still on. Even AM was a big part of this, and so there's a live version where like the intro is like 6 or 7 minutes as it is, and then they do an even longer version of The Way It Is. And they just go hard into the jazz stuff. But it's funny. My understanding is a big reason that he disbanded the Range is that he was feeling a little bit limited. The band was good. They the bass players from Ambrosia, they were very not progressive so much, but just they were very good anyway. But he was just feeling limited, I think, by the idea of having a band and being stuck in that sort of Virginia sound. I think they were coining it with it when his brother was writing the lyrics. So there was just a clear break where he shut it down. The last song that really came out under the Range was Madman Across the Water, his version.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I have listened to that.
Yeah, I stuck that on the podcast too.
Nice. Yeah, because I listened to that one, and the Elton John version, obviously, and Brandy Carlisle's version. I think it was just live though, but it was still good.
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely. There's actually a really cool version of "Bam Man Across the Water" featuring Mick Ronson on guitar. If you're,
that sounds
well,
familiar.
David Bowie. Yeah, he was.
Okay,
he was in the Spiders from Mars, but and so Mick. I don't know how it happened, and it went unreleased until like the early '90s, and then it was a different version of "Bam Man Across the Water," but with Mick doing some guitar, and it was just a nice way to hear a different version of the song.
Yeah.
Another great way to if you're sick of the hits with Elton, the Symphony album from '87 or '88, I guess, with this Melbourne, like Australia.
Yeah.
It's just a great way to hear, especially some of the old material. Like he went back to the Elton John record, like technically a second album, but the first one to most people. So like songs like 60 Years On and like Take Me to the Pilot, they in those versions with the orchestra, it was sort of a thing around that time. But it definitely is a great way to hear those tunes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to talk about around Hornsby in particular? Is there?
I mean, I'm definitely not educated enough on his music. He'll be my next endeavor, probably. I'm doing some Springsteen right now, obviously.
Cool. And how far are you through Born to Run?
I've just got like 3 tracks left. But yeah, it's been good so far. Definitely really good songwriting, and I like the piano and the like saxy sort of stuff. Is very cool. Very raw.
Yeah. Well, it was
the lyrics are really cool too. Like very unique lyrics.
You bet. He wanted to make his stories like to be like a movie, right? He was a very cinematic writer, even though he wasn't, if I recall, like super into movies. I think he obviously would have watched movies like anyone at his age, but he really, I think, got more into cinema as he also started reading. But I mean, Born to Run is it's a masterpiece top to bottom. And while, it's also one of his most popular, so sometimes I try to skew people away from it, but it's really hard to beat the 2 Born albums. And it's
because I listened to Darkness on the Edge of Town as well, which was pretty good.
Well, it is, That was a reaction album. I always love the albums after the hits, right? Because there's something to prove. Or
it was cool. But Hornsby I'll do soon.
Yeah,
maybe on Impulse.
It's not as daunting as it seems. He does have a lot of stuff, and he has a pile of live stuff for free if you want, like through nugs.net. I've downloaded them all, and one day I'll probably listen to them.
Because the first Hornsby song that I loved was the intro / Great Divide from the Here Come the Noisemakers. Yeah, that was really cool. I think we were listening to it on the way to Grandma's house. Yeah,
or on the way home, I think, or something.
One of those trips, and
we had it cranked. It
was really cool.
There are a couple moments on that album, that the Here Come the Noisemakers, because that was it was clips from his Spirit Trail tour. Some of them he just did him and his piano, and then the rest was obviously with the Noisemakers. That was a band he put together for that starting then. And he was really proud of that band and still is. I don't know exactly who's in the band now, but they were all just like highly skilled players, just a little more, able to do the jazz thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. Like, you can tell they're masters of their profession. Like, they just like the start when he's like, just gonna play while they sit up behind me. Well, and he just plays a sick ass solo for like a minute.
For a minute, I ball every time the band comes in because it's so just.
Well, it's such a gorgeous solo, and then the band they just come in so smooth. Like, I think that's kind of, you can tell that they really mastered what they do, and like together, because I assume quite a bit of it's improvised too, like when they're doing their solos, but they're really tight. So yeah, it's really cool to listen to.
Yeah, the crack of the snare when all of a sudden it's like.
I love that snare sound actually. Yeah.
And it starts on the ride, and it just flows through. And I think there's a guitar player involved with the Noisemakers, but it's definitely not guitar based at all. Whereas the range, like, there were 2 guitar players, although one of them would play. Actually, I think even George played keyboards with him. So. A lot, just because a singer the front person is the keyboard player doesn't mean they're the only keyboard player. There's usually like either organ or synthesizer parts or whatever that need to be covered off. And he's. I know that so the Noisemakers has been basically the entity ever since, and he's drifted in and out of projects. One really cool project that sadly sounds a little better on paper than it actually ended up is he did a duet album with Ricky Skaggs.
Oh yeah,
So they did this like kind of, and obviously they did like Mandolin Rain and the Valley Road, because the Valley Road is one of those songs where, so if you're into the Grateful Dead. The song that is the most important in the Grateful Dead catalog is Dark Star. It was the one that started out as a 2-minute song and ended up being a 20-minute song. So that, and every time they do it, it's got a little bit different spin. For Hornsby, it's a song called The Valley Road.
Okay.
And so it was a hit, in that Bruce Hornsby in the Range vibe, all the 80s drum sounds and everything, weird synth bass. But then he was one of the artists on the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band's Will the Circle Be Unbroken Volume 2, and they did a full-on like bluegrass version with like snare drum beats. They also did a version as, I think it was a Noisemakers version, where it's like a halftime, like, and so that he has revisited that song a number of times in a few different styles.
Yeah.
I think it's just amazing just to hear the changes that he makes to his own material.
Yeah.
Same with obviously the way it is too. It's pretty hard to mess with that one. Sometimes like when he does it solo, just him and his piano, it's freaky too. But around the time he was popular, he wrote 2 songs. One was Jacob's Ladder for Huey Lewis, which actually came out even before this record, if I recall, or definitely around the same time. So. But his version didn't end up on album until the second one, Scenes from the South Side.
Okay.
But the other key critical song in this era is "The End of the Innocents" by Don Henley.
Oh right.
Yeah. So they co-wrote it together. It is almost like the little brother to the way it is, like in impact, in lyrics, and actually in popularity too. It was a very huge hit. I didn't put it on the playlist, though. It was definitely a Range era song for sure, but the Range was kind of the wheels were coming off, I think, by the second tour in about 88, 89.
Yeah, he's scratching his head.
Oh, Archer, yeah. He's gonna look at himself on the camera or on the screen. Yeah. Oh, buddy.
Yeah. I don't remember that song by ear, but it's definitely one that
probably if I played it for you. But yeah, there's definitely like Mandolin Rain. Every Little Kiss was the other huge hit from this album. Great video, like kind of a live video. It's just nice to see them. Just getting to see these players that were so amazing at what they did, and his pocket, like his piano, like like his. It's really hard for me to even. I can't even think critically about a guy like him, because it's. I don't love all of the material. Like if we're going to compare the Bruces, obviously I prefer the Springsteen catalog for a consistency perspective, but from a sort of a troubadour or a what would you say, like just a risk taker. I mean, like Bruce, he threw it all away, which is even by the third Range album. Which was a great record too in its own way. You could just sense there was something off, like there were a few moments, and then some of it felt like it was phoned in. He also did a song on the Backdraft soundtrack called "Set Me in Motion," which was, I think, was technically their last hit and I didn't even know the song until the Greatest Hits came out. So which is like really weird for me, but it was not really on the radar.
Yeah.
But around that time, he then joined the Grateful Dead and filled in for Pigpen when he died, and he just seemed to really enjoy that. I guess just like John Mayer,
I guess.
Let's go join the Dead when things get push
tough.
comes to shove. Yeah,
that's funny.
And then of course when Harbor Lights came out, I freaked. That song. It's one of the few that I could probably listen to every day. It could be Desert Island Disc if I have to make a list.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, I love every song. There's never any I skip. I could skip a couple because they were a little more poppy, but like Phil Collins doing those vocals on what was that one?
I just know from looking at the Bonnie Raitt.
And Bonnie Raitt on Rainbow's Cadillac, of course, yeah. The album after that, though, was Hot House. He tends to go in fits and spurts, so when he's doing an album, like he'll kind of instantly do another album, and it's been a pattern of his. Hot House came out after Harbor Lights. Definitely some great songs. Not as much of a favorite of mine top to bottom, but I, again, can put it on and love it. And then he, I'm not sure. I kind of lost track with him. That was around the time he was working with Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan. I'll have to play the... do you remember the song "I Feel for You"? I don't know. I have to.
No.
Prince wrote it for her, and the beginning of the song is just her name, like Chaka Khan, Chaka. It's really corny. So anytime I say her name, I have to say it like 3 times, like Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, so mid '90s, and he was definitely, I guess, just continuing to play live. Probably had a family going on, but the Spirit Trail record was the double album that came out in '98, and again, just a complete mind blow for me. Just and then of course the live album after that. I didn't get that until later. I knew it was out, but the live albums are sometimes a bit of a mixed bag or whatever. And in that case too, it wasn't like one show. It was like clips from different, from TV spots he had done, and just live concerts throughout. Have you listened to that album, the live Here Come the Noisemakers, fully?
Actually, maybe like 4 years ago when we were in the house, I might have, or I've gone into it, but not in a long time. No. Okay. He kind of just fell off my radar for a bit, until, for whatever reason, you showed me Harbor Lights while I was working out, and then that was months ago too, like probably close to a year ago. Yeah. But I'm still listening to it.
Well, yeah, no, and I'm glad. And that's probably the best example of what he can do. I'm always intrigued by people that are able to take really complex music and make it more accessible, which is actually funny because a lot of your stuff is too. They're not maybe having the same chart success with some of the artists you listen to, but like Rush would ultimately be the best prog version because they were. They kept the time signatures to a minimum, but they were also willing to like throw amazing drum fills.
Yeah, well, they can really serve the music, I suppose. Yeah, like they can do it so it's accessible to all listeners. Like it's not,
Well, it's tasteful, I guess would be the term I would use.
Yeah.
Hornsby had a few singles that did okay, even as a solo artist. But again, nothing huge, and it would be like on. The radio channel that they put on when you're like getting your teeth cleaned, those kinds of channels. Oh, there's a nice song by that artist, but never met any of the success that the way it is album and singles did. Yeah. He tried though. He tried again. I would love to pick his brain about this one time. He did an album in 2004 called Halcyon Days. Which
I think you talked about.
Yeah, it's like I used to say it was my favorite. I'm not. Yeah, it'd be right there. It'd be top. Yeah, maybe second. Like if Harbor Lights and then that one because I like it when artists get not hungry so much, but when they strive for excellence and they don't get lazy. So. There's an easy way out when you're an artist, which is to just ignore the charts, ignore people hearing it, and just go after. The fans will like it if they want, and they don't because clearly, I'm sure Hornsby didn't need the money by that time. But I've always been more impressed by artists that try to straddle the line between like pushing boundaries within the limits and trying to. Basically have another hit, and that one was definitely an attempt for that. He pulled out all the big stops too. He had it was like a new record contract. It was funny too because he was on RCA for a long time, and then he left, and he signed a new deal with Sony, who then ended up buying RCA. Oh, yeah. So then he ended back on the same label funny. Anyway. Yeah, he pulled out did a duet with Sting. He had Clapton.
Yeah, he seems to do with a lot of blues like Clapton and Bonnie Raitt.
Yep. Yeah,
probably more. I'm sure.
Yeah, Bonnie on her live record from '95 called "Road Tested." The first track I think actually it was a video too. I think I have the VHS of it. Yeah, Hornsby's like on the first song. He plays accordion really well too, and they do a thing called Love, one of her big hits, but it's kind of as a duet, and he's doing the accordion part of it. It's just a really unique version of it. So he was always just he likes to hang with his friends, and his friends happen to be extremely rich and talented, and
yeah, pretty much,
and probably good looking too. So I really dug Halcyon Days, and then but like a lot of artists, then there would be like a live album that came out. There was I think it was called Bride of the Noisemakers. Or something.
Oh yeah,
it's a really funny cover. I bought it mostly because it was cheap. I do try to not get too caught up in the live album thing. It's a lot easier now with streaming because you can spin them once or twice and then you're done, or flag a couple tunes, drop them in a playlist that might be a unique version. His live, he's known for his medleys too, Bruce Hornsby. There's one. Well, you'll have to check it out again if you haven't already. Like through on Here Come the Noisemakers. There's I can't remember. It's one of his songs, and then he goes into Tempest Fugit, like the jazz, and they are slamming. And he also does Black Muddy River, which is a great Grateful Dead song, and then he morphs it into one of his. It might have been Mandolin Rain even or something, but sometimes his medleys can really like he's able to bring the medleys together. I was always intrigued by the fact that he wrote songs with his brother in the range too.
Yeah,
and I don't know much about that either. I mean, even Wiki, it just says the brother lives, in Virginia or whatever, probably with Bruce. But all of a sudden there was just like a complete cut. Like there was no action going on there. I just found that odd. Bruce does fancy himself a pretty good lyricist.
Yeah, I
think he's okay. He reminds me in a way of how Mark Knopfler ended up becoming like a very like a lyricist that really like digs in. Actually, Knopfler's maybe even better, to be honest. Like Hornsby likes to tackle some of those social issues. Obviously, the way it is was a big one, but like the song on the second song on Harbor Lights called "Talk of the Town." That's about an interracial couple. Oh. Yeah. So and there was a video for it that highlighted it too. But that was he liked to kind of put, because Virginia, even though it's on the east, it's kind of the South, right?
Yeah,
and they have dealt with a lot of those racial issues too. Long legacy of slavery, racism, all that stuff. So it's easy for us to sit back in 2020 from our cold place in Canada and kind
2021.
Oh my God, already.
Yeah, right.
But and kind of make pointed references about BLM and stuff. But there's, even though some of the stuff is terrible the way that the organization's doing it, there's a reason they're mad.
Yeah,
because it's they tried to play the game the white man's way and it didn't work. So that now they're taking power back. And they're tackling it themselves. But there's been a lot of people on the right side of history, and Bruce Hornsby one of them, and Bruce Springsteen would be another. He did a 6-part podcast with Obama.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's actually really good. It's
like Springsteen did.
Yeah, it's a 6-part. Like, because the Obamas have a deal with Spotify, higher ground productions or whatever, and it's called Renegades, Born in the USA, and it's just the two of them just talking about stuff, and it's really cool because it's actually the first time I had heard Springsteen elaborate more on the issues of race where he grew up, because he grew up in New Jersey, but there was some serious historically significant race issues and events that happened around where he lived.
Yeah.
And he talks a bit about that, and he had like a lot of black guys in his band. He ended up, of course, only having Clarence at in the official E Street Band, like once we all got to know them. But in the original version, there was a couple more black guys, and it was. Those are big deals, especially I think music brought a lot of those people together. These white artists, especially when they're growing up, these boomers were listening to these amazing R&B soul records by these black artists and basically absorbing it and doing their own versions of it and having it be reflected in their own music. And they, for them, it was just nothing. The Allmans were a huge part of breaking down some of that segregation, or those ideas of that. And that was, late 60s, but they were right from Florida, right? So that's the heart of some of that stuff. So it's neat to see that Bruce kind of tackled some of that, and then you can go through the catalog a bit more, but there's some stuff that check it out once. Like there's a live, it's like a double album. It's like solo piano live or something. Basically unlistenable. Like I could not enjoy it at all. It was like he was playing two different songs, one on each hand. Clearly, technically, just unbelievable. He was happy. I wasn't happy. So I won't listen to that one again. He did an album not that long ago. Didn't even play piano. Just played dulcimer. Like, that's cool. Good songs, very neat. But yeah, so he kind of got in that rhythm again where he's been recording. So he just released an album this past year, and he released one the year prior. Really cool, like kind of succinct. And he's always leaning into kind of whatever's going on not in the charts per se, but like he tries to stay connected to the newer artists and writers, and he's still doing that. So he's collaborating with younger artists, and just clearly for his own sake, because nobody's listening, and nobody's buying, but he's happy doing it, and I think that's good. A really amazing
way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also like that picture too.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
It's one of those, like when we were talking about rumors, it's like one of those pictures, I think.
Yeah,
cool.
That's a really iconic cover for me. That the bridge aspect is I think the bridge is on the back as well, right?
Let's see.
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. I knew it didn't look too rare or whatever. Like it was, and there's just something about that picture. Yeah, the starkness of that long bridge. I presume that is a actual place.
Probably maybe in Virginia.
Probably over where he's at. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I've rambled for 36 minutes all about my man. Yeah, but it's guys like this that keep me doing what I do, because I think there's room even in country for people that explore and push boundaries while still paying attention and knowing where all this stuff came from. His love of bluegrass music has been well documented, of course, with his Ricky Skaggs connections and country, but his reverence for the jazz greats. It seems to be more post-bop, kind of like almost avant-garde sometimes, some of the playing that he does, but his timing is so good that it never feels out of place. All the crazy scales that he does and note choices.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one thing I noticed just from like two songs maybe, and actually I guess some of the instruments, but he has sort of a Celtic almost. Very, I don't know what inspired that, but
he looks like he's got some Irish descendancy there for sure, and which on the East Coast makes sense, right? The side of the U.S.
And I don't know I haven't studied the theory of it, but there would definitely be something, probably a particular scale that serves like those like little trills and like in like the intro to Harbor Lights. There's like that one piano part. I don't know if you know which part I'm talking about particularly, but there's like a it just sounds very Celtic, kind of like you could do some fucking tap dancing.
Well, do you remember Pastures of Plenty?
I didn't actually end up checking that out, but that's the one that I was going to listen to.
The intro on that is a very little T kind of Celtic, and then of course it goes into this crazy drum pattern. I think that's a big part of his. But that's again a bit of a bluegrass connection too, right? So bluegrass is basically Scottish, Irish, English connection, brought down. With a bit of soul kind of coming from the blues or whatever. And and I love the fact that you can hear a piano part, even if it's not his album, and you're pretty sure it's him, and it usually is.
Oh, yeah.
Bonnie Raitt's song, I Can't Make You Love Me, that's him. Yeah. And that's him playing piano. It's outstanding. I love guys like this, so... Yep. But this is a great record. So 86, Wow, and we're already 2021.
Yeah.
There's been a few anniversaries that have come and gone around this one. I think the problem is, it's a bit of a niche album. In fact, they didn't know how to market him, right? Like even with that cover of that earlier version of the CD I have, with the two different versions of a couple songs, they were kind of lumping him into like a new age, almost like Kenny G, kind of like soft jazz almost. And if you listen to the production on it, it's not like hard rockin' production by any means. It's got electric guitars that are pretty distorted, but they're kind of buried down in the mix. Lots of piano, kind of electronic drums and stuff. So
well, yeah. Even trying actually, when I was learning Harbor Lights, there were 2 challenges about it. Well, actually, I guess like 3 because I was doing the outro solo, so it was very everywhere, so it's just hard to track down which notes. But then also the fact that the big part was that not only is there a lot going on technically and musically, but also there's so many instruments and they all blend so nicely that it's hard to pick them all apart. So that's been a challenge for that one.
Well, that's a sign of a good mix, right?
Yeah. Well, sadly, that was the hardest part about why I haven't figured out the chord progression yet. In that when it flips is because it all blends so well that you can't really pick it apart. But. Yeah.
Well, you'll work on that too a bit more through school, or we could even work on it because just follow the bass. Whatever the bass is doing is your guide. Sometimes it's hard to hear it though. I know what you mean. That one, like he's also got a lot of synth pads, like they're synthesizer pads. There's synth bass. There's also real bass. There's acoustic piano. Obviously, Matheny's guitars rolling there. The drums. There's usually like with Hornsby, a lot of that stuff in that era was still a bit of a drum machine, maybe, and live drums. So it's really well done stuff, but it can be hard to pick out some of the parts.
Yeah,
we're constantly reverse engineering everything, right?
True.
How did they do that? And then you come up with your own thing. But that's without having access to the actual masters and muting channels. Yeah, but I don't know if there were any other leftovers. But this would be, I guess, the 35th anniversary of this album. And I at some point I thought that they would it needs a good remaster. All of the range stuff does, because it was in those early days of CD. In fact, that's why I have the vinyl at the time. There were 3 formats, and Mom and I had to pick it up. Dad loved that song, and we had to decide. They didn't have the CD, so we had to decide: are we going to get record or tape? And then at the time I was of the impression that because I was 7.
Yeah, exactly.
I was of the impression that it was better to buy the vinyl, and then have a really good like a chrome cassette, blank cassette, and then make your own copy. Because sometimes pre-recorded cassettes, the quality was a little iffy on them. Because vinyl was always preferred to cassette. So then at least you'd have one copy of the album that was good, sounding good. But it skipped easy. This one I remember some frustrations going on because it in order to make that cassette copy that we would listen to in the vehicle, you had to like make sure you had a good take of the record playing and recording it on cassette. But vinyl was starting to get thinner because they were trying to cut costs and they were pushing people to buy CDs, which sadly, early CDs, a lot of them sounded just terrible because they were using vinyl masters, which have less bass overall, because they compensate for the fact that when you play a record on a turntable, the bass gets enhanced a lot just through the playing process. So that's why a lot of CDs, when you play them, they sound really thin and flat because they were just vinyl masters tunked onto a disc. So as the 90s came through, they started to figure out how to properly compress them and record for that medium and mix. So they're due for a good refresh, absolutely, on this catalog. But they're not huge sellers, so maybe unless when he dies or something, they'll finally do it. But there wouldn't be a lot of money. But the 2 versions of the songs that are on the special disc I have here would make a nice little couple bonus tracks, especially when it's just imagine like any album you love and top to bottom. If you all of a sudden heard this different version, it's true. It's alarming, even if it's just like a mix change or something.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a real mind warp for me the first time I heard
I like different mixes of songs. Yeah. If it's something I really like.
For sure.
Like going through, this, I didn't make through the whole Super Deluxe of Super Unknown by Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Because there's like 100 songs, I think. Or it's
there's a whole...
on the Super Deluxe, like the extra mega deluxe.
It's like a live album or two on there as well.
Yeah, and there's like demos and alternate mixes by different... And it was... I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool.
If you really love an album, it's a fun way to do that. Like the Tom Petty Wildflowers one is probably the last one where I did the deep dive. But I usually don't do it all at once. Like I'll listen to the demos first or at some point, and then I'll listen to all the extra live tracks or whatever at some point, and then maybe I'll listen to the remaster if there is one. But yeah, it can be a lot to swallow sometimes. You know, there's a reason they're demos is because we weren't supposed to hear them. But you can reveal, or a lot can be revealed about the songs, especially when you hear the demos versus, because there's so many stories about artists. They come in with a tape full of demos, and then this producer comes in and like starts monkeying with the songs, and they overdubbing and rearranging, and then the songs have none of the charm of the original demos.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. So yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I can't believe the cats stay here the whole time.
We both yawned.
Yeah, you've done a lot of yawning, and I don't blame you. It is.
Oh no, it's not out of boredom.
Well, it is soft rock pap at times too. I could on a plain listen of Hornsby, I could definitely see why. Like, oh, that really? We're going to talk about that, but. Dig in. Everyone do yourselves a favor. There's a 4-disc box set called Intersections. It's a nice way to hear some of his stuff. It's a little jarring because it's not chronological for me, but all those B-sides that I was talking about are on there. I'm going to have to do up some Spotify playlists, I think, because they should be tacked in with the albums that they were part of. So like Spirit Trail basically is the one where he recorded a lot of material. And... a couple soundtrack tunes, and his version of "Love Me Still" that Chaka Khan recorded is really nice to hear too. I didn't even know about that song till later. So, but he's still going strong, still doing live shows, or was up until this point. Yeah, and he is definitely on the bucket list for me. Yeah, in fact, I should have went. He was in BC not that long ago. Like I think it would have been like a suburb of Vancouver. With the Noisemakers is like seeing him solo would be good, but I gotta see the Noisemakers with him. Yeah.
I think when I was listening, because when you listen to something on YouTube, it brings up if the artist is touring, and I think it might have actually brought up something for him. Yeah, that he was touring.
Well, I'll have to check again. Yeah, I don't know if he has come here. I would imagine. I haven't seen him yet. Yeah. But definitely. He tours the states, right? So you can hop down to Montana, Idaho, whatever, catch him, or, somewhere around in those, and seeing him in a proper theater where where the band can just do their thing, and and also too, like when he does these little detours like that Dulcimer Only record. I mean, it was actually a pretty cool record, but I don't want to see that.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I want to see Bruce Hornsby being the Noisemakers, and just once. I'll be happy. But he's definitely on the list. So, okay, well, cool. This road is mine. What a weird, long, winding road it is. Get the snowplow, get the gravel truck. Let's look after that road. So, okay, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks, Colin, for sitting in and humoring me on this one. Okay,